So hey everybody, it's Chris and Lisa from Been There, Got Out. This is the quarantine edition. We, Been There, Got Out helps people suffering in and struggling to get out of relationships with toxic people and help them get the strength to get their sanity back and then some. So sorry we're starting a little bit late. We couldn't figure out how to do Facebook from different places, but I think we figured it out now.
So why are we in different places, Lisa?
Are we going to tell why?
Yeah, I would.
Why, Chris? Why are we in different places?
It's the same reason I haven't shaved and my hair's a mess and I'm going to cough like crazy. We have, after avoiding it for better part of a year, we have been infected with COVID, unfortunately. So I'm glad Lisa hasn't been quite as affected as me. I got really hit hard by it. I'm feeling okay at the moment, but we are in lockdown and just trying to get through it.
Yep.
So, but it wasn't going to stop us from doing our Facebook Live, right?
Right. As long as we can still breathe and talk. All right. So you want to get to the first
people? As long as we can still breathe and talk, we can help people who are in these awful situations.
Yes. All right. So there were some of the questions that we didn't get to last week. One question we didn't get to last week because we ran out of time. So I'll read it, Chris, and then you can start. Is it possible for a narcissist to also have BPD, which means borderline personality disorder? If so, what would this feel or look like?
Yeah, so this is one I've seen several times on Quora. And there's a person on Quora who I respect quite a bit named Eleanor Greenberg. And she's I want to get it right, psychologist or psychiatrist. I think it's psychologist, but regardless, she is very knowledgeable, highly educated, and in private practice in New York City. And in terms of like understanding and being educated on this topic, she is unparalleled. She's absolutely terrific. And she once answered this question essentially no, that someone could be one or the other, but not both. That is, a narcissist or borderline, but not both. And Lisa and I, we have a different approach. We're not academicians or professional therapists or anything like that. What we try and do, as Lisa said in the intro, is we try and help people who are in relationships with people who have these personality disorders. And we're focused on the behaviors, right? Somebody who's borderline or narcissistic, what do they do? A lot of times those relationships are abusive. And we're trying to help the person who is stuck in a relationship like that. So we kind of don't care what the academic answer is. We're focused on the behaviors. So in the end, for the partner of a narcissist or borderline, they need to know that treatment really isn't possible. First off, the person's not going to admit they have a problem, right? And it's rarely effective if they do, or they'll deflect. They'll say, actually, my therapist told me that my problem is depression, and the depression's caused by you, right?
Well, no, they say you're the narcissist.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they usually do.
So, but what is effective is getting out, right? Yeah. And as painful as that often is, but if you focus on the behaviors honestly, it becomes apparent that a healthy relationship isn't possible with someone with either narcissistic or borderline personality disorders that's severe enough to be problematic, right?
Yeah, my take is that I feel like people often get up in this research cycle, and that's helpful in the beginning, but the bottom line is your goal is to heal yourself, to get over what you've been through. And I always say that the first step in doing that is understanding what you're dealing with. And that's why it is helpful to have some labels. But once you know those basic behaviors, like Chris just said, and what to expect, it's really time to go deeper and shift the focus onto you and how you were drawn into this relationship, rather than continuing that same dynamic of the toxic relationship, which is putting all the focus on them and what their label is. It doesn't really matter.
Okay.
All right, next question.
Sure.
You want to read it?
Okay, I'm going to answer first, okay?
Okay, so I'll read it. Okay, how is a narcissist likely to feel if they had you in the devaluation stage, but you discarded them first.
Yeah, interesting scenario, right? And I think this was from Quora, right, sweetie?
Yeah.
Okay. So I did see that one on Quora, and the first answer was a really good one. And somebody had said, and this is a quote, "I filed for divorce when my ex was in the midst of devaluating me. It was the last thing he expected, as he knew I was desperate to save the marriage. The following years, yes, years, were made a living hell by his sustained reaction," end quote. And really, my experience was the same. You know, my ex left me, thank goodness, in hindsight, right? But she only filed for custody of our kids, not divorce. And it was so strange. Like, what, she wanted to stay married but live somewhere else and take the kids? Like, really? But I eventually filed for divorce, and Lisa will remember this well because we were already together. And my ex just like freaked out, and she was ranting. You know, she ranted that I was suing her. You know, and clearly she very much intended to keep me under her thumb. And when I wasn't going for that, her rage was like really scary. So
Yeah.
you want to?
Yep. My experience was a little bit different. So I didn't have these labels as it was happening. I didn't know that I was being devalued. All I knew was that I managed to expose his really terrible behaviors, and we were in therapy for quite a while trying to see them. And he got really tired. He didn't want to be accountable, of course. So he started shifting it into that I was really bitter and unforgiving and couldn't move on. And he was getting really sick of me for not just letting it go. So, you know, of course I couldn't let it go, especially because there was no accountability, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with when you deal with your partner in this kind of behavior. And so eventually, you know, he was going, I'm so tired of you. I'm so tired of your bitterness. And I said, well, I'm done. So I discarded him before he had the chance to discard me, even though this was years. And he was really shocked. He really, I think, didn't expect it to finally come down to that, because we had tried so hard. He knew that I really wanted to keep the family together and was willing to do anything, including wasted years of couples therapy. So when that happened, it was like he didn't want to accept it. And he also got very angry and said, you know, that I was the reason for breaking up the family, etc. And then started this, going into my 7 years now in the legal system, way to continue stalking me and financially abuse me and our kids. So yeah, they don't like the being abandoned.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the loss of power and control too, right? And
yeah,
that's absolutely. Like the legal system is really the only way he can still strike out at you.
Yep. And the legal system, you're stuck. You're stuck. Yeah. So, all right.
Now with the pandemic, which is of course on our minds today.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad we haven't, neither of us has gone into a coughing fit yet.
Yeah. All right, so I'll read the next one and then I'll answer quickly. I know you have a lot to say about it. Uh-huh. So the next one is, what type of behavior could be expected from a narcissist if you know damaging information about them? That's interesting.
Yes.
And I've seen that. So I've seen that with my ex and in other situations too, but I'm thinking my own personal experience. They feel really vulnerable and they don't trust that you would protect their safety. Like, let's say you just know something that they did or whatever. There's no way you can just let it sit and trust that you'll, not expose them, keep it quiet, whatever. They don't trust because they're not trustworthy themselves, and they project that lack of trustworthiness onto others. So from what I've seen, they get really aggressive. They try to intimidate you. as I said, they don't trust that you won't expose them. They're just not capable of it.
Yeah. So I posted this question on our Instagram feed, and within a couple of hours, we had a lot of responses that kind of echo what you said. So I've taken a bunch that they're still coming in as I'm like trying to keep up. And I've tried to edit them down. So, and then I want to, don't remind me, I want to share what happened in my own situation, which was a little bit different. Okay. So one person said, you can threaten to expose them, but be prepared for the backlash. They will have all their dirty laundry exposed eventually anyway, and will make up insane lies to whoever will listen. Trying to control the damage and get your side of the story will only keep you trapped in their sick web, which is so true. And then she went on to say that she's like standing on she's in the sidelines with the popcorn, waiting to see what happens. Another person said they and their flying monkeys discredit you in every way possible. And I think we've said what flying monkeys are, like they're little helpers that support them and believe their story. So it's not just them, but they'll send other people out to attack you. Another person said, and this was echoed in several comments, they become very dangerous. Another person said they become hysterical, threaten violence, and to have your child kidnapped. This is what happened to her. Then they begin a campaign of hate and victim blaming against you so that others think it's all your fault and that the narcissist is actually the victim. Yes, I've experienced that too. Another person said they freak the bleep out. Another person that he tried to discredit me, typical. Someone that we know in real life as well as through our community said she's living through this. They create elaborate smear campaigns and try to destroy you in any way they possibly can. Another person said, I have all the evidence I need to do this, but decided to stay quiet about it for now. He has already shown how dangerous he can be. And this person, it's been years. So she's holding on to this. Another person, I like this, deny, deflect, repeat. And then let me see the one on my phone that I just took a screenshot of. Okay, she said, if you have anything on a narcissist, please buckle your seatbelt and prepare to be discredited, devalued, gaslit, and targeted as a scapegoat for the rest of their lives. Yes. Now, my own situation was a little bit different, and I don't know if that's because he tends to be more covert. And so what happened was, you know, a lot of you who've heard us speak before know that my divorce took a full year, almost to the day, from filing, and was very expensive. And a lot of it had to do with my ex just refusing to move forward, which also ties into that whole abandonment issue. So in order to try and move things along, my lawyer told me to try and dig up whatever I could use for leverage to avoid trial, any kind of information that he hoped that my ex would be so ashamed of that he wouldn't want it to come out in court and that he'd settle. So I definitely had some very damning information, and my ex was well aware of this. But shockingly, it didn't stop him or his attorneys. And in a packed courtroom, lawyer began telling the judge these elaborate stories to try to prevent us from bringing the information to light. And we didn't even have to say anything because the implications made in his lawyer's comments already shocked everyone there. He didn't infer what the information was. And to this day, I still cannot believe that he didn't even care. You know, usually narcissists are so conscious of how they look, but he didn't care. So it was a little bit different when I had damning information against him.
Yeah. All right. So I'll
read the next question.
Yeah.
Should I read it? Okay. So we see this one all the time. Have you seen a narcissist's eyes turn black? And when?
Yeah, you're right. People report this a lot.
Yeah.
And so I don't have any like medical explanation for it. Like that somebody who, you know, you look at old photos, I'm thinking of Charles Manson, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the photos of him where his eyes were just like crazy and just emotion, like completely had no empathy, right? But and not all narcissists are like truly evil, like him. You know, I mean, that's a little bit of
Yeah, yeah.
example. But people do say it a lot, and I remember my ex. There would be times that her eyes would just look so dead, you know, just like that. And I always compared it to the eyes of a great white shark. You know, those black, soulless discs. You know, and I remember one specific incident. It happened a lot, but one specific incident in the weeks following our breakup, before I knew like not to let her in the house and not to have any contact. It was long before I knew anything about narcissism. We were still having conversations, still arguing and discussing. And she was standing in my kitchen after she had moved out, and she's looking at me with those cold, dead eyes, and she says, "Look at your eyes. Your eyes are completely dead." You know, and I'm like, oh my God. I mean, it was the most extreme example of projection I'd ever seen, you know. It was just, my jaw hit the floor. But like I said, I don't understand how it happens, but a lot of people report it, so there is something to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. For me, I felt like my ex often had dead eyes, but it wasn't just the eyes. It was like the whole face. It was like this overall expression of like just this blankness. But he was just gross overall. So I don't even want to think about it. All right. Well, I think this is our last question. What happens to the aging narcissist?
So we actually, if I remember correctly, we wrote a blog on this, didn't we?
I think we did. Yes, because I remember we used a blobfish image.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So, and when I say we, you wrote the blog on that one.
Yeah. That's so, okay, Chris.
But generally, you know, as a narcissist ages, one of the things that happens is his or her peer group is aging along with them, right? As they get older, you know, it's kind of, a lot of people in their early 20s are naive, right? Haven't learned a lot about healthy relationships and don't have a lot of life experience. But when you're in your 50s or 60s, you've grown as a person and you've learned about health. Most people have learned about healthy relationships, and they start to become easier to spot, you know? So more of the people that they would try to suck into their whole complex web of games and manipulation and all that stuff, there are more people who are like, I've been through this before. I recognize this isn't healthy, and they're just like, they see something's off about the person, and so they have a harder time finding people to to manipulate. And they burn their bridges, right? They become it's impossible for a narcissist to have a close, long-term, healthy relationship, really, with anyone. It's just not possible. So their relationships become either really unhealthy ones, or they're not that deep. They're just shallow, like lots of like casual friends. That's certainly, I see that in my ex. And they end up with this ever shrinking circle, and they're lonely, and depression is pretty common.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. They definitely become more isolated. And like you said, I think a lot of people don't really want to tolerate the lies and storytelling. So in my situation, in my ex's family, there were other toxic personalities. So I actually got to see firsthand what happened to an aging narcissist. So this particular person became very physically ill. He had no friends. He was completely isolated. He lived in squalor. He wouldn't even let a cleaning person come in to pick up after him. It was really disgusting. And all he had was money. And I think that his money was the only reason that his adult children remained in contact with him, because they wanted to make sure to claim their inheritance. And in the last couple of years before he died, his adult children financially abused him. They ran up thousands and thousands of dollars in credit card debt in his name. When he died, they didn't even bother to they didn't even post an obituary. they couldn't be bothered, and they didn't have a funeral or even any kind of memorial. The other thing that I just thought of was, as this person became older, I think he did reflect on the way that he treated people. And I think that he had a lot of sleep problems, where he was haunted about some of the things he'd done in the past. And he would talk to himself a lot in the middle of the night. It was like he couldn't sleep easily. So I don't know if something like a conscience ever starts to plague them or what, but I thought it was interesting that towards the end of his life, he seemed like there was some regret.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that was even possible.
I didn't either, but I saw it, and I don't think it changed anything, but I think it definitely was interesting to hear how it haunted him, the sleep thing, you know.
Yeah. So that is it. You're right. That was the last one. And this week, our COVID Q&A. Hopefully by next Thursday, when we will have another Facebook Live Q&A at noon on the 18th. I'll be feeling better. This thing has been horrible. Hopefully, Lisa, you won't get it any worse than you've already got. And we can put this behind us and get back to our normal energy level.
I hope so.
Yeah, if you have any questions, as I said last week or week before, we're not hard to reach.
No.
So, Instagram, Facebook, on our page, just post a question. There's a contact us link on our site, easy to get in touch with us. We love getting questions from our audience, and we're happy to answer them.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And thanks for putting up with our coughing.
Take care.